Hey, what's up, everybody? So this is going to be a really quick up and running tutorial on how to get started with serverless. We're going to be using the serverless framework, which is a really great way to quickly provision serverless functions onto multiple cloud providers. So this is going to get you up and going in a few minutes, and you'll be hitting a serverless function locally. So you can learn kind of how to write serverless functions, and how they behave, and how to configure a serverless YAML file. So let's get started. You'll notice I'm at serverless.com. This is the framework serverless. So you'll see the word serverless thrown around kind of as an analogy for functions as a service. Then these guys actually went and, I guess, bought serverless.com and created a really great framework. So we're going to use this to get up and started. So the first thing we're going to do is they provide an excellent starter. And we are going to use SLS create, template, path, my service, all this stuff. Okay, you don't have to know what most of this stuff is. Just copy and paste this. But what I do want you to know is SLS. And you'll be like, hey, what is that? That is the serverless command line. So if you don't have it, you need to install it. You can see I kind of ran through this before. So you'll do npm install g serverless. And that's going to be the install for global. So you're going to be able to run this anywhere in your system. And that SLS you saw is the same thing as running the serverless command. So SLS whatever is the same thing as serverless whatever. Okay. So if you see that referenced, that's exactly the same thing. It just refers to the serverless command as well. So, okay. So let's go back to where we were. And let's go ahead and use one of their templates. So you'll see template, AWS node, and then it's going to say my service. So we can keep it my service. SLS create, serverless, and then, yeah, so now we can go see my service. And I'm going to do this fancy, cool code dot command. All this does is it tells Visual Studio Code to open the current directory. So we'll do that. And here is Visual Studio. And I'm going to dive right into what this serverless YAML file is. So this config file, this is specific to serverless. This is not for everything that is a Lambda function on AWS or Google Cloud. This is specific to the serverless framework that I mentioned earlier. And all this does is it's a nice, neat way to set it up and tell it what you want it to do, how you want it to be triggered, all in one place. And so it's just this little YAML file. Instead of having to log into AWS or do it through the command line, which definitely has a learning curve for beginners, we are just going to use this file. So a lot of this stuff you don't need. It's just commented out so you can see what you have the ability to do. So you can see it gets quite advanced, handling resources and all that stuff. We don't want any of that. So we do, however, want to use this. So what is this? This is the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be doing. So you'll notice if you never worked with the YAML file, do you notice how this had a little red squiggly? Bad indentation. That's because YAML is indentation sensitive. So you can do some fun deep dive on YAML, but just know that this is not the same thing as this. Okay. So what is this? This is saying that, okay, this is where I want to declare some functions. Cool. And this is going to be the kind of the namespace of this particular function, of kind of what we're going to call the things related to it. And then we have this thing called a handler. So a handler is telling you, is telling serverless, hey, I want this module export to be the front door of this function. Okay. So this is what I want to be called when I invoke this function. So what is a handler? All this is it's saying, hey, find me any file that says handler. Okay, here it is. And then give me the export of hello. So if you look here, you can see that our exports there's a hello right there because we're exporting hello. This has to be a function. So you cannot module.exports hello equals a string. This has to be a function. Okay. So if we go to serverless, we will see our events. Now events is where we declare how we want to invoke this function or how we want to call it. And in this portion, we're going to use HTTP, which is a easy, you can hook this up to a lot of different stuff. But just for the purpose of this, we're going to use HTTP, and the path is going to be \. And if this doesn't make sense, it'll make a lot more sense in a minute. The HTTP method that we want to use is get. So we want to say, hey, I only want get. You can actually do any here as well. But for now, we're just going to use get. So this is saying, hey, if you hit the root path, then I want you, where'd it go? Yeah, then I want you to hit handler.hello. That's all it is. And here's handler. And by the way, this doesn't have to be called handler. This can be called foo, right? And then we can go here. I've got a friend who hates when I use foobar, but this is for you, Brad. So yeah, so I can call this foo, and it'll still work the same way. Okay. So we need to run this thing locally, right? So how do we do that? I'm going to use the terminal inside of Visual Studio Code, and you can use that with, well, you can look up the command, but I'm going to use the terminal inside here. And then we're going to do npm init. Okay, so we need to, I know there's like a flag for this. I forget what it is for defaults, but we're just going to do the defaults. Is this okay? Yes. All right, so now we have a package JSON file that we can start installing stuff. So the main thing we want to install is npm install offline serverless, I think it is. Let's double check before we run that. Yeah. Nope. Just kidding. Serverless offline. Serverless offline. Of course it is. Okay, so that's what we're going to install. Offline serverless. Dyslexia. Okay. There. And I will show you what this means in just a minute. So this is going to install. If anybody has anything cool going on this weekend, drop it in the comments while we wait for this to install. I'm not editing this out. You're riding with me. We're doing this for real. Okay, cool. As usual with NPM, ignore all the red warnings. And then now, inside of here, we are going to use our plugins. So this is, again, a little configuration area inside of serverless, and you're going to go plugins, and then you tell it, hey, I want to add some plugins to this. It's weird. I don't know what gave it away, but you say, hey, I want to use some plugins, and one of the plugins we're going to use is Serverless Offline, which we installed inside of our package JSON. And you will see what that does in just a moment. So I think we are about ready to send this thing off on its maiden voyage. Let's go back to foobar and just check everything real quick. Okay, everything looks cool. We are expecting to see this boilerplate language in here. So let's see. Oh, snap. It's ya boy. And then I can go SLS offline start. So remember, SLS is an analogy for serverless. So SLS offline start. And I did something wrong. Let's see. SLS offline start. Why is that not? Yeah. Serverless offline. Yeah. Offline start. There we go. Okay. So now it's working. I don't know why. Okay, so now we're going to go to localhost 3000. Oh, snap, it's your boy. So there you can see the response coming back from what we had in our payload. So let's review. We go to foo. This is the export. This is .hello, which is returning, oh, snap, it's your boy. And then you can see inside of the serverless file, that it is looking for the file foo, and it's looking for that export of hello. So now you're off to the races. So you can install Express. This works great with Express. And I'll be posting some more tutorials about how to take this and get it into Express. And you can write ES6 and ES7 and ESNext. Sky's the limit. But now you have the ability to run servers, run serverless functions on your local host. And if you ever want to sometimes you'll need to restart this, so you just hit Control-C and then just run it again. And there you go. So I hope you liked the tutorial. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification. I'm going to be posting a lot more tutorials later. But I appreciate you coming along the ride with me, and stay tuned. Thanks.